Okay, sorry about that. Alright, so again, let's go ahead and create a UV shell again from here. So object mode, I have my cube selected. I'm going to create a camera-based one again. Awesome. And I'm going to move this down just so it's convenient for you to see. Okay. So we can use edge selection mode and select a couple edges and go ahead and start cutting our UV shell apart. And I'll show you what that does in a second, but essentially we're cutting these edges and creating a seam on that part of our UV shell. This is a cube, so I'm going to go ahead and unwrap it into a T shape, kind of like it originally comes with. So if I cut almost all the way around on both the top and the bottom, I am going to get a T shape. You can't see it yet, but if you click on the UV shell and then you go up to modify and then unfold, or you can come over here to unfold and then choose unfold, it'll automatically unfold your object. And you can tell that you've cut or sewn it a good amount if it doesn't have any weird skewing. So if all of the polygons look like how your geometry looks on your object, then most likely you did a good job of cutting and sewing it. We can stitch things back together though. If you select, like as you can see, that selects both edges because that is actually just one edge on our object being selected. I'll do hotkey for wireframe mode just so you can see that. But yeah, that's just that one edge. It's a seam being selected. So let's say I want to sew that back together. So I can go cut and sew, sew. And as you can see, kind of skewed the geometry there, right? And then if I look, yeah, you see how that kind of is trying to piece it back together into a cube. So we can try and re-sew everything back in. Right, so kind of coming together. Let's see. Let's re-sew this one. So let's re-sew that together. And this last one as well. Okay, so it kind of has sewn our UV shell back together, but it does not look good anymore. It looks bad. If you hit unfold, nothing's going to happen. So we're going to go ahead and undo those sewing. But sewing is really great if you accidentally cut things apart that you don't want to. So let's say that I cut this edge right here. Okay, now I have two different UV shells. I have this one and I have that one, right? And let's say I want them to actually be the same UV shell. So I can sew them back together by selecting that edge, right? And I go to sew. But let's say I cut them apart and I moved them around, rearranged them, and I want to sew them back together. I realized later, oh, I actually wanted to sew those pieces back together. I can still select that edge and then I can choose sew, but then that's going to skew it. So instead of choosing sew, I can choose move and sew. Okay, and this automatically moves the shells next to each other so that when I sew them together, it doesn't try and meet in the middle. So that's really helpful as well. Okay, now that I have unwrapped my object, let's go ahead and stick that UV shell back in this area. Again, we can use the nice handy layout tool. So if we go down to arrange and layout and then choose layout, it'll automatically shrink it to fit within your spot right here. If I do, let's just do, okay, yeah, layout works great. And then you can always rotate it in here. So if you want it to fit a little bit differently, maybe you want it to be a little more up and down, uniform, make things easier for you. Yep, you're welcome to do that as well. So remember what I told you before about if you ever wanted, oh, let's check our UV map really quick. Let's add that texture in here. Let's go back into my shaded mode so we can see it. Okay. And let's take a look at how it looks. It looks pretty good. Not a lot of skewing, and all of the checkers look to be about the same size. So that's kind of nice. But again, if we go ahead and cut these shells apart, and then we resize one of them, but not the other, it is going to change the amount of geometry, or not geometry, it's going to change the amount of texture that can fit within that space. So as you can see, the checkers are smaller in that area. It becomes even more obvious the more you shrink certain sections, right? So now we have pretty misaligned textures, and this clearly looks like there's some weird seams, and it doesn't look like a cohesive texture anymore because of the scaling issue. So that's just something to keep in mind. Generally, when you're trying to scale down multiple shells of the same object at once, you want to scale them together so that even if they are far apart from each other, it won't cause that strange resolution differences or anything like that. Okay, let's go ahead and cut these edges really quick. So I'm selecting both and then cut and sew. I'm just going to cut like that. And I actually want to reorient this a different way. So I'm going to make it a lowercase t instead. I'm going to do the move and sew again and move and sew. Okay, awesome. So now I have that lowercase t texture. Same thing, looks good, but that's just a couple of different ways where you can orient cubes in different ways. So that's an option there. Let's go ahead and bring in a different texture image. Okay, so right now, let's turn off that. Okay, we turned off our checkerboard. All right, right now my object hotkey Q has a material added to it, probably Lambert 1 or Standard Surface 1, whatever it came in with. I am going to just go ahead and assign a new material. Assign a new material. Let's just add, let's do object mode. Make this a little easier. Okay. Assign new material. Okay. And let's grab, let's just do something simple. We'll just do a Lambert. That's fine. Okay, so this is Lambert 2. I'm going to rename this to Minecraft Cube. All right. And right now, my color is just this range right here. That's fine. But let's go ahead and add a diffuse map. Okay. So we're going to come in here to diffuse and choose file. And diffuse map is another version of color mapping. So let's grab an image. This should be the Minecraft Cube texture that you downloaded. It should be in the Google Drive. I'm just going to grab it really quick from my files. Right. Oops, wrong one. Minecraft grass diffuse. So I'm going to open this up. Okay, looks cool. And let's see how this loads in. So let's go back to our material attributes. Okay, we've got our diffuse map in there. So that's fine. We're actually going to add that diffuse map to our color map instead. So let's go to File, and then grab it from the same spot. Oops. Sorry. Run that again. Okay. Yeah. So I lied. Don't add it to your diffuse map. Instead, let's just add it to the color area of our texture. So again, we went to material attributes. In this color section, we added a file. So you click on that little button. That takes you here. We're going to call this file Minecraft grass diffuse. Okay, diffuse is generally the term we use to mean the color map. So we're going to, sometimes people use other terms in other programs as well, but diffuse is most commonly used in Maya. So that's just something to keep in mind. But awesome. Okay, so yeah, we grabbed that file from our downloads, or from hopefully your H drive if you're hoping to save this and take a look at it later. But as we can see, it didn't come in super well. Okay, so why is that? Let's take a look at our UV map. So we have our checkered map. We can still see that. Let's turn that off. This right here toggles on the display image that shows the current texture. Okay, and if we select our UV shell, as you can see, these clearly are not lined up, right? So the image information it's grabbing from this map is everything that is behind that UV shell. So if we take a look at it, that's why we have all of this extra kind of white blank space. Let's start by just doing rotation. So let's go ahead and rotate this guy. Okay, maybe that'll help. Let's rotate it. Let's see. Rather than rotating it, actually, let's go ahead and change how we've sewn this map together instead. So let's just move it. We're just going to move the map down a little, and we're going to change it so that our longer T is actually in this direction, and then this is our three-way T right here. So I'm going to change it so that works. Let's go ahead and cut here. Okay, and we're going to cut there as well. Okay, and then we want to sew this back on, so we're going to do move and sew. Nice. And then this one as well, move and sew. Okay, awesome. Now we have our T shape. Okay, so that's looking a little bit better. Let's kind of move this into position so we're not getting any of the white. Okay, so that looks cool. Let's take a look at how that looks in here. So that looks pretty good, but okay, we're not getting even grass coming down on either side, so that's not ideal. So we could try and stretch this a little bit, right, with our scale tool, stretch our UV map to try and fit that better, and that works pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's better than it looked before. Okay, so let's try and line that up. Okay, so maybe we stretched it out a little bit. The other issue though that you'll run into is obviously there's some easy, it's kind of hard to orient this exactly perfectly, right? And part of that is because of how we started our texture. Okay, but general rule of thumb actually looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. So we have our grassy texture. Again, we're having that issue where it's coming down further on this side, right? So let's figure out which side is that and why. Okay, so you can do face selection mode, take a look at where it is. Okay, yeah, so as we can see, it didn't line up perfectly over here. So let's take our UV shell and maybe scale it out that direction a little bit. See if that makes any difference. Okay. Okay. So the other option is we could come in here and just take that face in particular and move it kind of over here, right? Lines up a little better, and that does work. So yeah, that'll work for our UV map. It is stretching things a little bit, but because it's a Minecraft cube, it's not very obvious. Let's change where this is at a tiny bit as well. Let's move that over. Maybe let's even scale this one down a little bit, side to side, so that it's just this grassy area with none of the dirt overlapping. Okay, so that looks nice. Awesome. Okay, so now we have our Minecraft diffuse map applied, which is kind of nice. So let's just go back to object mode and take a look. Looks pretty good. Let's rotate it with the attribute editor. All right, so that is how you can apply textures with UV maps that are more complex than just colors. So that's how you unwrap a cube. And then we'll go on and talk about how to unwrap spheres and cylinders as well. But this is a good baseline.